Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the singing of our national anthem by our very own Riverside Chorus.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please help me welcome Colonel President of Riverside Military Academy, Colonel
Take seats!
So these two hunters are walking through the woods, and one says to his buddy, "Hey, watch out, there's a big hole right here." And they both look over and they look into this hole. It's this big, black, dark, deep hole. And they look at each other and they say, "I can't even see the bottom of that thing. How deep do you think that hole is?" The other one says, "I don't know." He says, "Well, why don't we throw something down there and see if we can hear it hit the bottom?" So they look around, and sitting right over here in the woods is a big, huge iron anvil. You know what an anvil is? Those big iron hunks that blacksmiths use? An anvil sitting right there in the woods. So they say, "Come on, let's get this anvil, we're going to throw it down the hole." So the two of them go over and they get this old rusted anvil and they start dragging it and pushing it and pulling it and getting it close to the edge of this hole. And they push it over the edge of the hole. And then they look down after it and they didn't hear anything.
Good morning, Riverside.
Good morning.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. It's a really humbling experience for me. I want to first extend my gratitude towards Colonel Gallagher. Thank you, sir, for everything you've done for me so far and for the invitation. To my former and wonderful band officer, Chief Warrant Officer 2, Giozzi. Sir, you were a great influence on myself, and you left the unit in capable hands and as a capable unit. Also to the Riverside staff, I don't know if I've met all of you yet, but I look forward to meeting you. This wonderful institution is an inspiration for me and somewhere where I would like to send my sons someday. I think the best thing I can do at this point is give you a little bit of Sergeant Hogan history. All right, I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. Any Cowboys fans in the house? All right, I know I'm in Falcon Nation, it's okay. It's all right, God will forgive you someday. So I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. Both of my parents born and raised in Texas. I have two wonderful younger sisters that I'm very proud of. As Colonel Gallagher said earlier, I am a graduate of Townview Magnet Center High School, and I subsequently attended Prairie View A&M University, home of the Marching Storm, the best band in the land. All right? So I think I've undertaken a great deal of responsibility in my short 30 years of life so far, and becoming a husband, a father, a United States Marine, and when I got this invitation, I did not take it lightly, because with all the responsibility I've taken in my life, I am well aware of the impact that seminars and speakers like this can have on our bright young minds and our future leaders. So with that said, I'm going to offer all that I can, even though I still consider myself young. There's a lot to learn. So here it goes. When I went to Prairie View A&M University, I graduated in 2012 with a Bachelor of Arts in Music, and there were many experiences there that I've taken with me and that have helped me throughout my life. And now, whether or not that was when I was actively leading in a former or formal leadership role or an informal leadership role, we'll talk more about that later. I was band freshman of the year in the Marching Storm. I was originally a psychology major, go figure. I was also named section leader. I changed my major in 2009 to music, and I was inducted into Kappa Kappa Psi National Honorary Band Fraternity. The very following semester, after I pledged, I was named the chapter president. Something at the time I did not think that I was ready for, seeing as I'd only been in the chapter for a semester. But my peers and my band director saw fit to allow me to take on that responsibility, and I'm grateful for that. I'd also, at that time, been a swimming instructor at the Cooper Aerobics Institute in Dallas, Texas. I started that job when I was 16 years old during the summer in between semesters in high school and continued after I joined college. That job has taught me a lot about humanity, and in particular, it's interesting to teach children how to swim, especially because children have a habit of just laying their feelings out on the table and being honest about just about everything. And I think that the largest lesson that I learned is watching children. They can be selfish and unselfish in a span of 15 seconds. You know, something that they do to another child in the class or to me, based on their emotions at that time, can both be incredibly self-centered, or they can be incredibly loving and giving at the same time. So what I learned in that moment is that being unselfish is a must when it comes to being a leader, or at least someone in a leadership position, right? Because it's not about you, it's not about your needs or wants, but it's something that you have to consider about people that are following you. So in that instance, I got into that water every morning at 8:30, and it was very rarely warm. It's always cold. When you get 3- and 4-year-old kids in there, it's going to be cold for them. But something I had to think about, I can't be selfish and allow myself to look cold to these children, because then they're going to be cold and we're all just going to struggle for the whole class. So that's number one, unselfishness. In all of the leadership positions I possessed, I think the greatest lesson learned was how to determine what my leadership style was going to be. I learned that I mostly enjoy being a participative leader, which is basically just someone that, or in other words, it's a democratic style of leadership. Somebody that takes in ideas from all those that are involved in the task at hand and come to an agreement between all members in how to solve the problem. As I was promoted to chapter president in my fraternity, I quickly learned that it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal when it comes to leadership style. The chapter was made up mostly of my peers, people that I was in the band with. We were all about the same age, same kind of experience levels. And what I figured out was that the dynamic of the group, or the demographic of the group, is actually what will drive the leadership style that is necessary to accomplish the mission. The chapter, for example, because we're all the same age and all the same experience level, I couldn't use the participative style because we would never get anything accomplished. So what I figured out is that a transformational style, where the leader has a strong idea and an idea of what they want to do, and they delegate tasks. It's very similar to how a lot of military leaders lead. You get delegated tasks in order to accomplish the complete mission. That required that I developed a lot of good judgment, because sometimes the transformational style didn't work, and it needed to be autocratic, which is just, this is going to be my way or the highway, because time is essential, or there's just there's no time to figure out exactly what we need to do until you follow my words. For us, my wife and I, my last semester in college was quite a bit busy. It was very difficult. I became a certified personal trainer at LA Fitness. I worked there during my last semester as a trainer. And during my time as a trainer, I came to understand that the working relationship between a personal trainer and their client is based largely on trust. And trust between a personal trainer and a client is built on knowledge, or at least what the perceived knowledge is. So if one of my clients didn't think I knew what I was talking about with regards to fitness, we probably wouldn't have a very long relationship. And even if we did, it wouldn't be a very good one. So knowledge and being prepared as a leader is key. Keeping promises to yourself is a way to improve upon or at least maintain a high level of integrity. If it does not come from yourself first, you cannot expect it out of anyone else. The winter break, prior to my final semester in undergrad, my choir director asked if I would participate in the 105 Voices of History choir. I participated once before in the fall semester of 2010, and I absolutely loved the experience. I told myself that if I ever got the opportunity to go again, then I would, no matter what. Well, that last semester, like I said before, I had a lot going on. My graduate recital was coming up in April. I was working as a trainer at LA Fitness. I was commuting every day, 45 minutes to the school. I had also taken on 18 credit hours for that semester, which was the largest class load I had had up to that point. I almost told her no. I almost said no to that opportunity. But I remembered what I had promised myself, that I would take the opportunity if I had it. So I did, and I thank God every day that I did that. Mostly because that's where I met my gorgeous wife, Kiera. She was at the first choir rehearsal in Nashville, Tennessee. We were doing a concert at the Grand Ole Opry. If you ever get a chance to go, you should. So after I saw the most beautiful woman on earth walk into this room, I said to myself, I'm going to sweep her off her feet, and they're never going to touch the ground. And I think I've done a pretty good job of that so far. So the lesson I learned there was to take the initiative. Listen closely, boys. Take the initiative, be decisive with enthusiasm. These are all cornerstone leadership traits. So we kept in touch after the Nashville concert, and after 4 months after my graduation from Prairie View, I took a leap of faith. I moved my entire life 1,500 miles northeast to Wilmington, Delaware to be with her, and the promise of new opportunities. So soon after moving to Delaware, I became a very popular swimming instructor at a well-to-do health club, and life was good. Honestly, I did not feel complete. I wanted to claim the title United States Marine since I was 10 years old. But during my last semester in high school, I had a choice to make. And I told myself that if I were to receive enough financial aid and scholarship money to go to college first, then that's what I would do. And if I didn't, I would take on the challenge of becoming one of the few. Receiving a letter from Prairie View that read, "Congratulations, you've received an academic scholarship for the next 4 years," was kind of a bittersweet moment for me. Several years later, I had the opportunity to enlist, and my wife is actually the one that encouraged me to do so. That is loyalty right there, if I've ever seen it. My wife was not a fan of me joining the Marine Corps at first, but she recognized how important it was for me and supported me regardless. It's the best decision I've made in my life, except for marrying her. After I talked to my recruiter, I shipped off to Paris Island 4 weeks later. Hoorah! My experience in basic training, I think, was quite a bit different than the average recruit. I was 26 years old, was a college graduate, was married, had a lot of life experience, and I think that the most difficult thing about basic training was actually keeping the platoon from losing their minds, because most of the 18-year-olds in there did not have their head straight on their shoulders. I have no doubt that all the gentlemen in this room would be quite a bit different in that experience. All the lessons I'd learned up to that point before recruit training were definitely reinforced every single day by my drill instructors. Just keep that in mind. After graduation on Parris Island, Marine Combat Training in the Naval School of Music, I was sent back to Parris Island. I will tell you that that was not the happiest moment of my life, okay? Subsequently, I'm actually very happy to be there because I would not have met Chief Warrant Officer Giovi, and I had the privilege of being under his leadership for those years. Chief Warrant Officer Giovi had done a phenomenal job turning the band around. Before I got there, the band had gotten down to 18 members, and they had started to build a reputation that was not desirable in the Marine Corps' eyes. And just the fact that he had done a phenomenal job turning the band around, making it sound better, there were more members, that observation alone was enough to know that he was a more than capable leader. But even more telling is anytime Chief Warrant Officer Giovi had an opportunity, he would thank the unit and all the members for all of our hard work. We were all able to acknowledge the tremendous improvement in the unit, and he made us understand that it was actually us doing the work, not him. And I think that is a great leadership quality. The great Lao Tzu once said, "A leader is best when people barely know he exists. When his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, 'We did it ourselves.'" And sir, I really do mean that when I say thank you. You're definitely the embodiment of that quote. In the midst of all these new things in my life, I also had 3 sons. Now let me be clear, I love my children with a passion that words will never be able to describe. However, being a parent of 3 young boys is like running a 3-ring circus. And sometimes it's a sort of great frustration. For raising 3 young boys, I'm required to exercise an enormous amount of justice and tact. It's a hard line to walk sometimes because there is rarely a moment where all of them see eye to eye on anything. Whether that's sharing toys, watching Little Einsteins instead of PJ Masks or Paw Patrol. An important aspect of justice is consistency. I can't expect any person, especially anyone under the age of 8 years old, to understand their circumstances when it pertains to rewards and punishments. So only 3 months after arriving on Parris Island and 2 weeks after being promoted to corporal, Chief Warrant Officer Giovi approved my request to enroll in the next McQuist course. This changed my life, specifically how I viewed myself with regards to what I'm capable of. So McQuist, or the Marine Combat Instructor of Water Survival course, is one of the hardest that the Marine Corps has to offer. It shows an average attrition rate of 65 to 85%. The McQuist course is 3 weeks long, but at good old Parris Island, you guessed it, it's 6 weeks. The Parris Island McQuist candidates are given an extra 11 training days in order to work on conditioning and swimming techniques. Most of the candidates are drill instructors, and they must be as proficient as humanly possible before they can be assigned to the combat training team. So I was guilty by association. That course was by far the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. I would much rather go back to recruit training for 6 weeks than do that course over. Because the course happens on Parris Island, we couldn't start training until 1600. The recruits have swim call all day, and it's just, there's no way we could have both of those things going on at the same time. So 1600 to around 22, 2300, have an hour on the water, 10 minutes to eat a snack, another 6 or 7 hours in the water. And it's strictly exercise and techniques. The last 3 weeks of the McQuist course, we add American Red Cross lifeguard classes and McQuist classes. So our day would be from 1600 to midnight, 02, 03, somewhere around there. There were a number of things that were exceedingly difficult. Drown proofing, strip swims, brick drills, combat load rescues, aquatic conditioning cards, and penalty strokes. So we always ended the night with an aquatic conditioning card or PT card. We're talking about boots, full camis, flak jacket, rifle, and a Kevlar, swimming across the pool, 10 feet of water, picking people up, dragging them 25 meters while you're swimming with all this gear. PT cards took about an hour and 15 minutes, and then after that we had our penalty laps. So throughout every training day there were certain rules and procedures. I'm certain that y'all have some of those here. Such as how to enter the water, how to stack our gear, and one cardinal rule was to never grab the side of the pool or get out of the pool unless instructed to do so. So if any of those things happened throughout the night, our instructors would give us 100 meters to 500 meters per incident for our penalty laps. And it's always the last thing we did at the night. And my class averaged about 1,500 meters every night. So at the end of every night, we swam about a mile. It was a hard lesson in dependability. My classmates and I depended on each other to do the right thing at the right times in order to avoid all the extra pain and misery. At some point, every single night for the first 3 weeks, I thought about quitting. But when we finished our penalty strokes, cleaned up the deck, and we were debriefed, I would leave the classroom and look out onto the pool. And there's this massive red digital clock hanging on the wall, and it kind of lights the pool up after all the lights are out. And I looked out into the water, the red water, and I said to myself, I didn't think I would make it through tonight, but here I am. So there's no excuse why I can't make tomorrow. And at that moment, I was reminded of Franklin Roosevelt's quote. It's my favorite quote. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. And it became clear that all of the penalty strokes, all the laps, all the extra things that we did were only making us better, faster, and stronger. Challenge, strife, struggle, pain, difficulty, and confrontation are just the fires that help us forge our resolve. That course was the greatest test of bearing, courage, and endurance that I'd ever faced, until the last week. The last week of the course, Sunday, February 28th, 2016 at 1900 hours, which was the night before rescue night, which was our final, most difficult physical assessment. My family and I were driving back from Columbia, South Carolina on Trask Parkway, which is about 15 minutes from our home. It was pitch black outside, no cars on the road except for ours and an old Toyota about 100 meters in front of us. As we approached the next intersection, a minivan turned onto Trask in front of the Toyota, leaving him no choice but to slam into the back of the van at 60 miles an hour. I quickly pulled over as fast as I could, handed my wife the phone, and told her to call 911. I got out of my car, ran to his, which was now facing us oncoming traffic with no headlights. When I got to him, I opened his door and began to pull him out of the car. I knew that we needed to get out of the road because someone would undoubtedly hit us as it was dark outside. As I got him to his feet and pulled him to me, another car slammed into his head-on at 60 miles an hour and knocked us both about 10 to 20 feet in different directions. I remember being more angry than I've ever been in my life. I immediately sprung up, according to my wife, quickly looked myself over for broken bones and any major bleeding, and I looked for the gentleman. Once I found him, I got underneath his arms and pulled him to the side of the road. I looked him over for major bleeding and gave a quick concussion test. There's no major bleeding, moderate concussion, definitely some broken bones, ribs, ankle. I then ran over to the minivan, which had rolled upside down into a ditch, to check on the driver. All the doors were locked, so all I could do was check for signs of life. She was unconscious, but breathing. By this point, all of the emergency personnel had arrived and started asking me questions. After I answered, I was taken with Beeper, the gentleman that I pulled out of the car, and the woman that hit us, to Beaufort Memorial Hospital, where I was treated for some minor scrapes and a slightly bruised kidney. I will tell you this, the full weight of that situation did not really hit me, pun intended, until a couple of weeks later. What did hit me just as fast as the car did was the fact that I had rescue night the next evening. All of that work, the hardest work that I'd ever done in my life up to that point, was in jeopardy of being lost if I couldn't complete rescue night. My chief instructor left it up to me. He said they would give me up to a week of recovery if I needed it. But I was afraid that too long away from that rough sea that I had been navigating that whole time would decondition my body and I wouldn't have the endurance to make it through. So I chose to do it the next night, as scheduled. I was still pretty sore all on my left side from my shoulder to my knee, but I passed all 4 rescues on my first attempt. Almost 18 months later, and to my surprise, was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for Heroism by our commanding general, Brigadier General Austin E. Runforth on Parris Island. I was also recently awarded the George Van Cleef Military Leadership Award from the USO at their gala in New York City. And I've been invited to speak here at this incredible institution. Truly humbling experiences, to say the least. Although I felt and still feel a great sense of pride in what I've done, I can't help but wish that we could live in a world where my actions that day would not be considered extraordinary. Instead, just the decent thing to do for another human being. As a young boy growing up, I had a great example of a leader in my father. At an early age, I was exposed to daily illustrations of courage, unselfishness, tact, initiative, endurance, integrity, and knowledge. I think the 2 most important qualities that my father exhibited during my life were empathy and humility as a human being. Seeing your first hero admit that he's wrong and offer a genuine apology as a human being is extremely impactful on a young child, especially. There is a high level of empathy required to humble oneself as my father does so freely. My mom has the gifts of tact and justice. It is because of her that I do my best to get both sides of the story and all available information before I reach any conclusions. Again, a high level of empathy is required to be tactful and patient enough to await evidence so not to make any rash decisions. The Marine Corps gets a great many things right. The 14 leadership traits, which I have all named here, is definitely one of them. However, I truly believe that empathy is the foundation upon which all other leadership traits and principles are built. Without the clear lens of empathy, your ego can blur every leadership trait you possess and thus create discord between the leader and the led. Empathy is what allowed me to take action that day. When I saw the accident occur, I didn't know the driver's gender, political affiliation, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, or social status. And frankly, it wouldn't have mattered if I had known any of that before meeting him. All I knew was that another human being was in need and that I was capable of helping. My challenge to you, cadets, staff, family, and friends, and anyone who is watching, is to always look at every situation through an empathetic lens, because when we do that, we connect to our humanity, which allows us to access our true potential as leaders. We're able to lead, as a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps does, with firmness, fairness, and dignity. Thank you. So please, cadets, staff, anyone, if there's any questions that you have for me, please feel free to ask. Someone's got to be the first one.
Hey, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for speaking to us today. I have a quick question that I think may resonate to some of our gentlemen who have been wrestling with the decision, do I serve in the military or do I go to college? And you've done both and you chose to go to college first. Can you speak briefly on why did you choose to enlist versus get a commission? What was that choice like for you, and do you feel like you made the right one for yourself? Thank you.
Yes, Sergeant. It's an excellent question, actually. I think the best thing I can tell all that's here is that I chose to go to college because it is something that I needed to do for myself, and I listened to that inner voice. Everybody knows the inner voice that I'm talking about, yes? It's always there, your basic instinct, your first answer that pops into your head when you ask yourself the question, should I or shouldn't I do this? And there's always an answer that's initial. My advice is to follow that initial gut instinct, and that's what I did. I received the scholarship money, and I stayed true to what I told myself, because honestly, I think I would have made it in the Marine Corps at 18 years old, but I do not think I would have had the same experience that I've had so far if I did. I think everything that happened the way it was supposed to, but that was only because I stayed true to what I knew about myself, and I think that's the most important thing. If you feel like you're ready, if you listen to that initial voice and it says yes, enlist, or it says yes, go to college first, or yes, commission, then that's what you should go with. Did I answer the question, sir?
Thank you.
Sir, you said you wanted to go into the Marine Corps since you were 10 years old. What motivated you at 10 years old? Why?
You know, this is going to sound a little vain and a little shallow. So, first reason is I am the best, and I will be part of the best. I think it's very important to see yourself that way. Second reason is it was a commercial. No shade on any other service, but the Marine Corps knows how to make a commercial. And for those that are wondering which particular one, it was the old one where the Marine had his NCO sword and he fought the dragon over the boiling pit of lava. But I think just to further to expound upon that, I think that a big problem we have in our society is we put heroes, we throw around this term hero so often. And I know from personal experience and from just knowing people in general, any hero that you talk to will tell you that they're not a hero. A hero is nothing more than an ordinary person that does an extraordinary thing. And I think the most important thing we can do is keep in mind that everyone has the potential and I think the responsibility to be a hero. And that doesn't mean that you have to throw yourself in oncoming traffic and pull somebody out of a car every day, but it does mean that you stand up to bullies, that you don't allow somebody to make a misjudgment, or it's all of these little things that you can do as a hero. Those are things that heroes do on a daily basis, not just extraordinary circumstances. Yes, sir.
Sir, do you think if you enlisted first, you'd still have ambitions to go to college afterwards?
It's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that question because I think had I enlisted first and been part of the band field, I think it would be a lot more difficult to go to college and stay enlisted because I'm in this for the long haul, in case anybody's wondering. I plan to do 20 years if the Corps will have me, and I think I would have felt that way at 18 years old. I would have felt the same way. I would have been in for the long haul. So I don't know that I would have gone to college anyway, but I think either way it would have turned out great for me.
I have one
One more question. Anybody Anybody want to know more about the quiz scores? I can tell you something about that. Yes, sir.
You talked about standing to bullies and making tough choices. What struggles have you faced before having friends? Because that's the hardest people to stand up to, and some of the cadets here face those challenges. How do you face that challenge when you have to tell a friend, what you're doing is wrong?
Great question. So how do you stand up to bullies, particularly when it's somebody that you know really well or if it's a close friend? I think that the biggest thing to understand is nothing is a win all or lose all scenario, especially if you're talking about a friend. So if a friend of yours says or does something to somebody that is not right, then standing up to that friend is not going to end the friendship. It's not going to irreparably damage the friendship. And if it does, then it was not a true friendship to begin with. I think that everybody has a moral compass, and if your friend, if their moral compass is not pointing in the same direction as yours, and you point that out to them, then you're probably better off without them to begin with. So if you always err on the side of where your moral compass points to, if you stand up to something and you know somebody is wrong, it doesn't matter who that person is. If they have the fortitude to say, I was wrong, then they are your friend. That relationship. But if they decide to go against that and they show that they're not really your friend and it irreparably damages the relationship, then you're better off without it.
Close out.
I appreciate all the questions. If I can leave you with anything in particular, it would be that once again, empathy is something I think gets overlooked quite a bit when it comes to being a leader. Most people think, strong leader means that somebody has all the answers all the time, they know exactly what to do, and that's not the case. I think leaders are, once again, the same as heroes, ordinary people that do extraordinary things. So when it comes to being in a leadership role, if you make a mistake and you ask for input from subordinates or your peers or your superiors, then it shows that you are humble and that you are thinking about more than just your own wants and desires. Being empathetic means literally putting yourself into another person's place. How would I feel if this decision was made on my behalf? And I think if you continuously look through that lens, it will bode well for your experiences and anybody that you have to share those experiences with.